My name is Christian Novak, a representative of the Military Education Preservation Project, and I'm at the home of Benny Hayes on this day, June 19th, 2020, talking to Mr. Hayes about his time in the service. Mr. Hayes, can you start by giving us some background information on yourself, starting with where you were born?
I was born in Jakin. Well, I was born at the Donaldsonville Hospital. I was from Jakin, Georgia, so in Seminole and Early County. Born October 6, 1946. I was a twin. You go over to Donaldsonville and if you mention my name, oh, you're one of the twins. I had a brother, Billy Hayes. I have a sister 5 years older than me, and I have a sister 5 years younger than me. And we grew up in Jakin until I graduated from high school when I was 17 years old, and then I went in service.
So were you drafted? Did you enlist?
No, growing up I had an uncle, Jake Cannon. He was about 8 or 9 years older than me, and he was in the Air Force. And we would listen to, I'd listen to, he went to Germany and traveled, and that kind of enthused me. And so when I graduated from high school, I decided to go in the Air Force. And, but I had a lot of, going into service, you have to take a aptitude test, test. It's pretty involved, and they have electronics, mechanical, commercial, and another one. There was 4 different areas, and so I tell my Army and Marine and Navy buddies, well, why'd you go in the Air Force? I said, well, my score was so high till they made me go in the Air Force, and so. But I went in the Air Force in 1964. I was 17 years old. My mother had to sign for me, and she did. And because my father had passed away when I was 14 years old in 1961. And so anyway, I went in the Air Force in 1964. I got out and I served my 4 years, and I got out in 1968.
What was your specific job in the service?
In the service, well, I made the highest score in electronics because my father was a radio and TV repairman and electrician, and so that was my highest aptitude. And so when right after we had a quick, during that period, they were needing technicians, and so they cut my basic training short a little bit in Lackland in San Antonio. They sent me to Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, and they put me in electronic warfare. It was, the technical name was ECM, Electronic Countermeasures, and but they called it electronic warfare. It dealt with jamming equipment, electronics. Then I spent almost a year in school, and then when I got out of school, they sent me to, one interesting fact was right when I got to Biloxi in electronic warfare, you was required a top secret clearance. Well, my mama wrote me all upset. Neighbors had told her the FBI was in Jakin checking on me. Well, that upset her. I wanted to know what her son had got into, because she knew I was a little wild, and I thought I was grown, and so it worried her, and I didn't know. I mean, they didn't tell me, so I checked in and found out, that's what it was. They was checking my background for top secret clearance. And then of course I went on a little higher than that, but anyway, that was really interesting. And they sent me to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. That was there was two wings down there, the 12th TAC Fighter Wing and the 15th TAC Fighter Wing. It was F-4C Phantom fighter jets, and they decided to send in '65. They decided to send a wing to Southeast Asia. It was not Vietnam. We were classified as going to Southeast Asia, and they sent us. So they asked for volunteers. Well, the guy I had met in Atlanta from Alabama, his name was Ennis Hester. My service number, the last two numbers was 29. His last two numbers was 30. So they was asking for volunteers between the two wings. Well, Uncle Jake had told me, said, son, don't volunteer for nothing. So I'm sitting there. Of course, I figured I was going to go, but I told Ennis and Jack Wiley, I says, I ain't volunteering for nothing. You know, my uncle told me not to volunteer, and I ain't volunteered. Well, Ennis and Jack, I knew I was going, but, you know, it was a thing. They went up and volunteered. Well, Ennis, sorry, sucker, he wrote his number down. He wrote my name and my number down because he knew it, you know. So they come back giggling about it, you know, and then they finally told me that I had volunteered, which I knew I was going, but that wasn't no problem. And so anyway, the 1st of November, well, in October, on my 19th birthday, I was told to write my last will and testimony. Hey man, what you talking about? I ain't but 18 years old. And he said, just piece of paper, said write it out. Leaving everything to your parents or whatever. But just write it and sign it. You know, so we did. And we went to, we left 1st of November. I got my orders on my 19th birthday to go to Southeast Asia. And they gave us 2 weeks free leave. And man, we getting a couple of weeks without being charged. Yeah, you go home and you get your affairs in order. So that's, you know, you think about that, get your affairs in order. I mean, you know, we young'uns, but what you gonna do? So I did, and anyway, we left the 1st of November. I was in the 3rd plane load of C-130s transports. They were transports. We left MacDill down in Tampa and headed to Vietnam. And we had everything we owned, you know, in a duffel bag, and our M16s. They issued us an M16. And we headed to Vietnam, and there was 60 of us to a plane, and we had web seats. We got in that plane, and we didn't get off of that plane for 52 hours. We spent 52 hours. We left MacDill. We flew to Norton Air Force Base for an hour and a half, refueled. Went to Hawaii, refueled. Went to Wake Island, refueled, and here we are. You know, they give us box lunches, and they fed us now. And went to, let's see, Wake Island, and then we flew to Yokota, Japan, and then we flew into Cam Bay, Vietnam. And I remember walking down the bay. Lord Duran, Manny, what the hell have you gotten into? You know, I mean, that's where we felt. But anyway, we processed in, and they give us a sleeping bag and a little blow-up air mattress, and they took us down, and it wasn't nothing but sand. You know, your beach lovers would have loved it, because it wasn't nothing but sand. And anyway, they says, here's where y'all gonna be. Y'all, you can sleep in the sand. There's a stack of plywood over yonder. You can get you a sheet of plywood and sleep on it. Well, we slept there for 2 or 3 days, you know. But in the meantime, they brought us some tents, you know, and they assigned us our tents in a row there, and we put up our tents, and then, of course, since I was in electronic warfare, we didn't have any equipment on them F4s. Of course, planes hadn't got there yet, you know, they were coming. And so we was on detail, what they call detail. And the first thing they done was they loaded us up in 6x, and we was part of their augmentee force, which was security, base security. And they stopped, and they said, they give us a handful of sandbags, and they stopped, and they hollered out, "Hayes, Hester." Well, I looked up, and here is 3 bladders, bags, 100,000 gallons of jet fuel, you know. And we was right at the bottom of it. And so I looked at Ennis, and I says, we ain't, no, you know. So I said, "The hell with you, feller, we ain't putting a foxhole right here." Okay, so they went on around, they called out a couple more names. Well, they took us up to the North Peninsula. Cameron was a peninsula. So they put us up in the North Peninsula, because if we, you know, if the Viet Cong wanted to penetrate in, that's where they was coming from, you know. But so anyway, we there, and we had a few alerts and had to go up there. But then they put us on. We was putting Constantine, because we were just starting that base up, and they put us on a detail putting concertina wire around the base, you know, barbed wire, you know. And one morning they come up, and the TI says, we had a big Caterpillar forklift, you know, they was bringing that wire in, and the driver was in the hospital. He didn't show up. Anyway, TI says, "Anybody know how to run that?" Well, I looked at my bloody hands, and I says, "Jake says don't volunteer." But I raised my hand. I said, "I grew up on a farm and drove some big tractors," which the biggest tractor I ever drove was a little 88 Ford, but I looked at my hand. He said, "Get on and learn how to drive it." So I run that big forklift for them, you know, for a week or 2. And then we had a bunch of Vietnamese, and we was building the runway. And they had built the runway, and then we was tying the runway into the taxiway, and had a bunch of Vietnamese welders. Well, they knew that I could weld, so they put me in charge of about 20 Vietnamese welders. So I spent a couple of 3 weeks there, and then we finally got our equipment in, and started working. Our equipment was before we got our equipment in, it took a couple of months. The F4s, we had a bunch of hot dogs pilots. I mean, we had a bunch of dedicated pilots that wasn't scared. They was like the rest of us. We wasn't scared of nothing, you know. Because most of us, we didn't figure we was going home. And they would send up 4 planes, 4 fighters, and we had missiles and bombs and just, you know, ordnance. And one would fly low, and the Viet Cong, they would fire a missile at him. Well, one plane up above would tell that pilot, okay, you know, they fired on you, you know, and you need to, and they'd tell him how to evade that missile. And then the other two, they'd go down and they'd bomb that site. The biggest problem we had, you know, and then we got our equipment, when our equipment told them that, and we started maintaining it, when they locked on you, and then when they fired, and then it would follow the missile to you, and you would know how to evade it, you know, and you could peel off and it'd shoot by you and then explode. But anyway, that was just the start. That was on the fighters, and electronic warfare was new to a point, especially in the Vietnam War. So then we got our equipment, we worked, and then Ennis and Jack, they had figured out some modifications to make it better, so we spent a couple of months down. They sent us, me and Ennis, down to Tan Son Nhut, which is the Air Force base down at Saigon. They sent us down there for a couple of months to train those guys on how to modify and everything. But then we come home, and we had some incidents. We had a few attacks, and I reckon the most memorable one there at Cameron was we had gooks. We called them gooks. They were Vietnamese. Were on the base, and they had lunch pails. It was a little old metal pail. It was 3 stacks, and and that's what they brought lunch to. Well, one day, one afternoon, we was sitting there in the tent on the flight line, and here come a gook walking out, and they wasn't allowed nowhere around the flight line. Well, he come walking out, and they hollered at him, security hollered at him to stop, and he did. He didn't pay him no attention. He just looked back at him and kept walking, and it didn't take but just a few seconds, and they shot him. It's kind of like, tell you to stop. You stop, or you're dead. And that's the way it was. And sure enough, he had a bunch of explosives in his bag, in his lunch pail. So if he'd have got into a plane, he could have blown up 2 or 3, 4, 5 planes. And I won't ever forget that. But we spent our year over, almost a year. On my 20th birthday, I got my orders to come home. And of course, over there, we didn't have refrigeration. We'd say the main beer that you got, which was, you either drank nasty water or beer. And that was, so we drank a lot of beer. And, about the main beer there was called Red Cap Ale. It come out of Canada. It was an ale. And 33 beer. 33 beer was a Vietnamese made beer. Friend of ours sent a 6-pack home to have it analyzed. His dad was a pharmacist. Sent it home, and it was up to 15% formaldehyde. So we drank a lot of formaldehyde, and I tell you, we took that malaria pill that they was talking, lately they've been talking hydrochloroquine. I took a truckload of them, So I reckon that's why at my age, I'm immune to it, I reckon. I don't know. It's kind of like the flu. I don't take flu shots either, but anyway, but on my 20th birthday, I got my orders to come home. So I spent my 19th year in Vietnam. We went up, me and Ennis, we bought us you could buy ice once a week, 50-pound block of ice. And so we got a block of ice. I had a little box made in the ground to help keep it cool. We come in and we were celebrating my birthday, my 20th birthday. And then when we come in and was icing our beer down, they come to want to see me in the order room, or me and him. So we got orders to come home, you know. So we had a double whammy, celebrate my birthday, and then we got orders to come home. And we went up, you could go up and down to tents, and buy beer, and so we went and bought 2 or 3 beers, and we was drinking, and then we come back and be honest, we got drunk as a bicycle. You try to stand a bicycle up, then they ain't gonna stand up. Well, we got drunk as a bicycle, and off of that Red Cap Ale, and cause it was tough. Red Cap Ale was tough. But anyway, a couple of days, and then we went down to we call it hop. You couldn't take food out of the chow hall. So we got our orders, and we was to go down to the port there and put our name on the manifest to go to Thompson Newt. Well, we went down that morning and got our name on the list. Well, when they called you, you better be there, And so, but at dinner time, we'd been there half a day, and at dinner time, we was getting hungry. So I told Ennis, I says, just, if they call my name, you answer, So I take off down to the chow hall, and they got us 2 big roast beef sandwiches, I'll never forget that. Well, I was fixing to leave, slip out. Well, the head sergeant there, big old guy, he watched everything, and he saw me, and like I say, you couldn't take food out of the chow hall. Anyway, the old baker, he got me them sandwiches for me, and I hit the door and took off running, and he went to chasing me, and I lost him down, went back up. And anyway, we ended up, me and Ennis got something to eat, and we finally caught a plane down to Thompson Newt, and spent a while down there, but when we got to Thompson Newt, we were in our old raggedy, we didn't have no clothes. Our fatigues were ragged, our boots were ragged. The only thing we had was that we had to carry with us was our dress blues, our dress uniforms, which we'd never had on when we was in Vietnam. And but they made us change into our dress blues. We didn't have a bath, but they wanted us dressed in our dress blues, so we did. And I remember Pan Am Airlines, Pan Am's was flying a lot of troops home, and the pilot and co-pilot was in there. Of course, I was coming back, me and Ennis was coming back on a C-141 military transport. And the Air Force pilot and co-pilot, they was in the arguing, right there. We was all right there. And they was in there arguing about who was gonna get back to the States first. Well, Pan Am was scheduled to leave a couple hours ahead of us. And we was only gonna make one stop. We was gonna stop in Yokota, Japan to refuel, and then we was going to San Francisco. Well, the Air Force pilot says, we'll wait on y'all at the gate and welcome y'all home, you know. And so, of course, we were sitting there listening to that. And so when we took off, the pilots, they called the fueling, getting the plane ready. They called the fueling and told them to fill us up, fill it up. Because airplanes, they figure what fuel they gonna need, and that's all they put in one. You know, so they told them to fill it up. And so when we got on the plane and took off, the Pan Am left 2 hours ahead of us. And we got on the plane, and the pilot, after we got out, the pilot come back there and asked us if we was ready to get home. You know, well, that's a dumb question. Yeah, man, everybody went hard, yeah. He says, we're gonna take y'all home. And says, you know that Pan Am bunch in there? Said, we're gonna beat them to San Francisco. You know, of course we all hollered, you know, and wanted to get home. And sure enough, we landed, when we taxied in at Yokota, Japan to refuel. And the pilots told them to cap everything off, you know, give us a full load. And we had pulled in, and we had to wait a minute for them to pull out of the way for us to refuel. And they went out and took off. Anyway, we beat them to San Francisco, you know. And sure enough, the pilots, hey man, we're gonna stand here and wave at them. But we beat them then, because flying we was maybe 450, 500 mile an hour. I mean, we was pushing 600, you know, and that was amazing. But other than that, then we made it home, you know. And that was a good thing. A lot of friends that didn't make it. They didn't make it. Okay.
So what was everyday life like for you?
A lot of beer drinking, a lot of working. We worked from daylight to dark, 7 days a week. We did our jobs, different things. We had different details. Once in a while, we would be picked to do KP, that's kitchen patrol. You know, working in the kitchen. We wasn't cooks. Now you didn't help cook nothing, but you helped keep things ready. We had big trash cans with. They kept the water heated because we had our mess kits, metal mess kits, and you had to go out and dip them and clean them and all. And if you got one thing that bothered me was when you got through eating, you know, you had scraps, you had something left normally. Well, we had trash cans out there, and you go and you put your trash in them trash cans, put what was left from eating. And the Vietnamese were there continually digging it out, and that's what they ate, and that bothered me, you know. We'd get on that once in a while, and then I think I spent 2 days on what we call shit detail. I give you a picture of one of them, and you won't know what it is unless you've seen it. We had our bathrooms. We had sometimes they was out in the open, you know. But most there camera on, you had 4 posts and you had a thing around it, little old covering around it, and you go to the bathroom. Well, underneath you had some 55-gallon drums that was cut, about, so high. And they put diesel, put JP4 diesel fuel, put fuel in them. And we had some hooks made. Well, every day, if you got caught on a ship detail, you took and you pulled them piece of drums out, and then you set it on fire. And it burned down. Then you would put diesel back in it, shove them back under. And that was probably the 2 worst details. And I was lucky enough to have a few of them. And most of them, somebody had come by and they'd see you on detail and on that, and it wasn't who you done, but anyway, they'd come back, "Hey Hayes, who'd you piss off?" If you was on detail, but it wasn't that. It was just name rotation, and but that was a big deal back, things just something to do, and then I love the ration detail. The Navy, I love the Navy. Man, they was something. We would go down and get rations from the Navy. They was bringing it into the ports, and we'd go down and we'd have ration detail every day. They'd go down and get our groceries, And somebody in our row there, we always tried to be on ration detail every week. We'd go down and we'd obtain a couple of cases of steaks. You didn't get steak. That was, you just didn't get steak. And but we'd get a couple of steaks, a couple of boxes of steaks, and then we'd get a half a day off, and we'd go down to the beach, South China Sea, and we'd grill steaks, and that was that was just something, that was, people don't think about that now. Kids don't think about that, but it was a treat, to get a piece of meat. And another highlight was me and Ennis, and they was fixing to send us down to Tonsonu, and our tech sergeant, Sergeant Dupre, he knew Ennis, and he came from his family, he knew his mom and daddy. Well, me and Ennis, they was gonna send us down to make these modifications, and Sergeant Dupre, the day before we was to leave, he says, "I'm going with y'all." And well, what the hell for? Dupre says, "Well, Hayes, you didn't you better call anybody by their first name. Sorry about it. Well, Hayes, I told Ennis's mom and daddy that I'd look after him, and I don't trust you in Saigon with him. So I'm going to look after y'all." But anyway, we went down, but the highlight was in an electronics shop, you don't recognize anybody. You'll see movies, an official or an officer comes in and everybody stands at attention. We didn't do that. We didn't pay no attention, that was procedure. Well, looked up and old Sergeant Dupre was standing there, and he jumped at attention, get attention, boy. The hell with you? We're working, He was standing there at attention. Well, I had to look back, and it was General Westmoreland. General Westmoreland was a 4-star general, and he was over the Pacific. Well, here he walks in the door, and I punched Dennis. I said, "Hey, that's Westmoreland," you know, and he kind of looked up, and here comes Westmoreland, and of course Sergeant Prey. I won't never forget Sergeant Prey standing there at attention. He says, "Sergeant, you go over and stand out of the way. Get out of the way. I want to talk to the men that's doing the work." Of course, you know, we got him. "Yes, sir." And he shook our hand. He said, "I just want to shake y'all's hands and appreciate what y'all are doing." And says, "Y'all are the ones doing the work. He's just standing around," you know. And I'll never forget that. But he introduced himself, you know, and all. And he was by himself. He didn't have, nobody come in that room but him. You know, normally you got a group with him, but he didn't have nobody, just him. He come in, stayed to spend a few minutes with us, and then, you know, he said, "Y'all take care, men, and thank you again." He left. That was a highlight, you know, of my time. Then we made it home. So,
Did you have any memorable experiences in action? Did you see much action?
yeah, we had a few, but it's all good.
What was your most memorable experience?
I would say my most memorable was 2 or 3 things. There was when I stepped off of that plane and wondered what in the hell I was doing there, meeting General Westmoreland. And the biggest thing I remember, and I'll never forget, is when we landed in San Francisco in '66. Was the greeting we got. And they had told us, says, you know, when we got off of that plane, don't look either way, you go straight to gate so-and-so, you know. And, but protesters, I reckon that's, you know, I don't know what they called them back then, but people calling us baby killers. I remember that word, you're a bunch of baby killers, you know, and then they was calling us other names, you know, and cussing us and all, and it was hard. It was hard to, you know. The biggest problem was we didn't have no weapons when we come home, and that's a good thing, because it would have probably gotten ugly, you know. But anyway, we did, and we got on through them, and didn't have no more problems. And I called me and Ennis. That's when we parted ways. Well, we got to San Francisco. And he and I had the same plane to Dallas, and that's when he and I separated. He went to Montgomery, Birmingham, I don't remember, but anyway, I went to Atlanta, and anyway, we got on different planes, and Jake, my uncle Jake, he was living in Columbus. And I got into Atlanta, and I called him, and I says, I can get a plane out, and I can be in Columbus at midnight, you know. And I said, where's Granddaddy? Because my granddad, his daddy, spent a lot of time up there. And said, he's over at Delmer's, and said, I'll call him. I hadn't had a bath in 4 days, you know. It had been 4 days without a bath. And anyway, Jake met me there at the airport in Columbus, and took me home, and he said, "Let me fix you a bath." You know, we was talking about, I hadn't had a bath. I said, "Man, I ain't had a bath in 4 days." And he said, "Let me fix you a bath, and then I'll fix you something to eat." Well, I walked in the bathroom, and he had a tub of hot water, bubble bath. He had put bubbles in it. And man, I can see myself right now, 20 years old, just laying back. And then when I took me a good bath, and when he got out, he had some peach cobbler, hot peach cobbler. Hadn't had a hot meal, and I don't know when. And but anyway, we had there. He says, "Granddad," he said, "Daddy'll be over here 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. He'll take you home." And so it wasn't 30 minutes. Here come Granddaddy. Showed up. And he says, "Son," it's about 3 o'clock. We sit there and talked, and about 3 o'clock in the morning. And Granddaddy says, "Son, you ready to go home?" I said, "Yes, sir, whenever you get ready." We got home down to Jake and the Mullins' house. 6 o'clock in the morning. My little sister, she was 15, 16 years old. They was living there, and had a big reunion, But that was about it. So I spent 30 days at home, and I left Vietnam. When I left Vietnam at Cameron, it was 120, 125 degrees, When I got to K.I. Sawyer, the SAC base, B-52s, I stepped off in 18 inches of snow. So quite a difference, But that was probably, meeting Westmoreland, coming home, was probably the biggest moments, that I want to remember.
Mm-hmm.
I've probably talked more today already than I've talked to my family.
I appreciate it.
But I got out of service in '68. When I got out, I put everything behind me. Until, I would say, let's say I got out in '68, 2004, you would have never known I was in the service. Would have never known it. Nothing. The only time would have known if you had read a job application, in which I ain't never filled out but 3 or 4 job applications, 5 in my life. But because they always want to know if military, and that was it. But until about 2004, you would have never known that I was in the military. So and a lot of veterans don't want to talk, and I'm one of them. I get a little emotional about it. But I get over it. I'm dealing with it.
That's good. What advice would you give other people about how to interact with Vietnam veterans?
never, ever, and I've had it, ask a veteran in the veteran, and I've had it happen to me, is, did you kill anybody over there? You know, don't ever ask a veteran that. I'm gonna tell you what my response is to them. If you heard the shot, you wasn't the target. If you didn't hear the shot, you're a dead man. And that I've learned, and you know, normally when I tell the young, and it's the younger generation, an older generation won't ask. But the younger generation, did you kill? You're still living. You know, and that's, the problem, and stop me if I get too going, but back during the 60s, there was a lot of protesters. There was a lot of people going to Canada for more than the draft. But 99% of the young people were patriots. We grew up as believing in God and believing in this country, believing in family and believing in this country. And the problem now, my opinion, that's my opinion, you know, is you're looking at socialism. People are looking at socialism. They don't understand what socialism is. See, that's the problem. But my advice to the younger generation: think back, look at history. You know, look at your history. There was times like, for instance, a good example is me. When I come from Vietnam, and I went to my girlfriend, which is my wife, she was going to school in Americas, and so on a Thursday, November the 3rd, which I had seen her before, but anyway, November the 3rd, I went to Americas on Thursday, and I was going to pick her up on Friday, and I wanted to see her Thursday, and then, but anyway, Danny Rakestraw, which was a high school, we went to high school together, he was up there in college where him and some boys was renting a house. So Danny asked me to spend a night with him, and I did, and I will never forget it. I was sitting there listening to Walter Cronkite. He was back during the day. Him and Mike Wallace was the two biggest news reporters. Chris Wallace, Mike would turn over in his grave if he listened to his son now, you know. But anyway, was listening there, and when I was in Thompson Newt, my tent was right next to the morgue. I saw the bodies coming in, the flags going out. I saw that every day for 2 months. Okay. Walter Contract, well, we had 22 Americans killed today. Where'd that other 50 come from? See, if you took every day of the war, Vietnam War, and if you had an accounting for every day that the news reported deaths, killed in action of Vietnam, there ain't no way that it would come close to the 58,000 men and women that lost their life. Ain't no way. See, so I was there, and that's my problem, and that's why, Christian, I appreciate, you're not trying to my opinion, You're not trying to rewrite history. You're just trying to tell it like it is.
Thank you.
You're just trying to correct some of the errors, you know, and that's all we can ask. And that's all I can do is to help correct. And I don't, like I say, I don't talk about it. I sit on my corner, mind my own business, and do what I have to do to survive. And but this younger generation, we worked for what we earned. We got 2 girls. I tried to teach them. They're in their 40s now, and I tried to teach them the value of life and earning money. You know, I won't ever forget Christy. She says she was wanting something. She was little. She was wanting something, and Megan told her, says, "Honey, we ain't got no money." "Well, Mama, you got plenty of checks in your checkbook. You got plenty of checks." But they overcome that. They learned the value of money, you know. And that's the problem, to my opinion, the problem today is our younger generation don't value anything. There's very little, and there's a very few. See, like personally, in general, I think every high school graduate, in general, should serve 2 years in the military before they're allowed to go to college. Now, my girls didn't, you know, and that was their choice. And I couldn't talk them into it. But I think that my personal is, I think if they serve 2 years in the military, regardless of what they are doing, it will teach them some discipline, and it will give them time to learn. Because if you think about it, how many college students today, when they graduate from high school and they start college, do they know what they're going to be? They don't. They have no idea. So they're wasting, and I shouldn't say waste, but they're spending 2 years, maybe 4, not knowing what they want to do.
What did your time in the military teach you? What kind of lessons did you learn?
Well, let me back up to my father. I was 14 years old. My father taught me many, many lessons. Many. He taught me how to do things physically and mentally. We were a very poor family. You know, Mama looked after us, and Daddy worked every day. And of course, he physically he wasn't in real good health, but we tried, but we grew up. Now, and this is the biggest problem, and this is what I learned, is we grew up in a loving family, in a Christian home, with 2 parents. Most homes now only have 1 parent, if they have a parent at all, you know. But I think that parenting, parents, fathers and mothers, need to get back to parenting, teaching their children. But that's what my father taught me by the time I was 14 years old. You know, the value of life. People don't realize that now. People don't realize the value of life now, like we did back during our generation, you know. And a lot of things I'm right about. There's a bunch of things I'm wrong about that even my daughters will probably disagree with me, you know. Like the other day, we had a little incident here, you know. I got my shotgun and my pistol, and boy, my daughter just flipped out, Daddy, don't you dare go uptown, you know. But didn't do no good.
How did you cope with being away from your family in Southeast Asia?
It was hard. It was hard, and that was one thing is I wanted to go in the service, but it was hard leaving Mama. But like I said, we was poor, so when I went in the service, I was making $78 a month. I sent Mama $50 for that 78. You know, on allotment. I think that's like I can't. You know, but anyway, you could a lot. You could send. They'd take $50. I'd bring home 78. They'd send $50. You know, I send Mama. I sent Mama $50. Okay. And then I continued to send Mama money every month. You know, and she saved every dime of it, and then give it back to me. See, but that's a mother. How many mothers would do that today? If your son sent you some money, what you gonna do with it? You gonna put it up for it? No, you're gonna spend it. See?
And you weren't married when you went
No,
in, right?
no.
But you met your wife
Yeah.
previously.
What happened?
Okay.
Was of course I went in service in August of '64, and I had a twin brother. So I tell you, Billy died in '91, age 44. And I come home for Christmas. I had, I don't know, 3 or 4, 5 days off for Christmas, and they give us, and I come home, and I want to spend some time with Billy. And of course, he was dating Mary Grace's cousin, because they were, you know, hot dating. And he says, I told him, I said, well, Billy, I want to spend some time with you. He said, well, says, Beth has got a first cousin, and said, I'll see if, you know, she's right with you. So, okay, so me and Mary Grace had a blind date, December 26, 1964. I was blind as a bat, I reckon. But anyway, no. So we started dating, and I wanted to see her, and then I started calling her. I got a phone, and every week I'd get a pocket full of change and go to payphone out there in Biloxi, and I'd call her, and, you know, and we'd talk once a week. And then it got to where I could come home, you know, on the weekends. I had a lieutenant that was from Albany, and he'd give me a ride home. So we dated a few times, quite a few times, and then when they sent me to Tampa, my brother-in-law gave me a '59 Plymouth and to drive, and so I'd come home every weekend and see Mary Grace, and then when I got my orders to go to Vietnam, she was a senior. She was a senior in high school, because she graduated in '66, and we continued to write one another. And it got to where she was writing me so many letters, and our mail, you know, it wasn't like the mail was delivered every day. She had to start numbering her letters. Every time she wrote me a letter, she would number the envelope. See, because I'd get 10 or 15 letters, you know, well, which one would I open first? You know, and so she started numbering. I mean, of course, postage was free, you know. During that period in Vietnam, you put an APO number to Vietnam, and you didn't have to, you just wrote free up there. You didn't have to put a stamp on it. So, but anyway, started dating, and then she come, when I got home in October of '66, we was dating, and then we got engaged in November of '66, and then we married. I flew home. I went to Michigan, and in the service, and I flew home in June, and we got married, and then we drove back to, she had a little old, I had a 57 Chevrolet, two-door hardtop, you know, back then. And she had a little Chevy too, and we rented a little old U-Haul trailer, loaded up our stuff, and we took off to Michigan. I was in the service. Cold. I got pictures of her shoveling snow. And, anyway, we come home, and I got out of service, we come home, and that was June the 16th, just a few days ago. That was 53 years ago. I got a reward in heaven. Everybody tells her she got a double reward putting up with me. But I always say, look at this pretty face. I enjoy life. I really do. And that's what you got to do, live one day at a time. And enjoy. To enter the younger generation that's working, enjoy what you're doing. Your job. Enjoy your job. Like I'm talking about. If you don't enjoy your job, don't worry about the money. Find something that you enjoy doing. Then the money will come. See, and you will make a decent living. But if you're working in a position that you don't enjoy, you're gonna die. I can tell you that now. You're gonna die. See, but enjoy life.
Do you have any other interesting anecdotes about your time in the military?
Well, not really other than I got hurt. Well, I was in B-52s. I was in a SAC as B-52H models. Ice was, we got 400 inches of snow. The first winter I was there, it got down to 56 below zero.
This is in Michigan?
In Michigan.
Okay.
Just, and stayed there about 3 weeks. I put a percolator, when me and Mary got married, I put what they call a percolator in the water line in the car. And then of course I bought me a little old heater to go under the dash that they sold up there. And we'd pull up to the driveway, we had what they call hitching poaches. It was a post with a receptacle, 120 volt receptacle. I'd take my plug, I'd plug my percolator to keep my water hot in the motor. I'd plug the heater in to keep the inside from freezing up. I mean, that's how cold it got. It was, I reckon that's why I hate cold weather. I mean, 100 degrees, don't bother me. Sit there. Like out in my man cave, I got air conditioner. It was 100, like last year, it was 104. I was sitting there with my door open. Didn't bother me. That keeps cutting it down. Somebody come by, they ain't gonna stay long, cause I don't have nobody coming by no way. But other than that, I can't, right now, Christian, I just want to thank you for the mission you're on, and to, like I say, not rewrite history, but let's try to correct some of the things that was erroneous, to help people. And that's one problem is a lot of people don't understand. They got one version, and that's what they're going by, and that version is wrong. So what does that make them? It makes them wrong. But you can't tell them that.
Well, I just wanted to hear it from you. You were there. You had a first-hand account.
And like I say, there's certain things, and you'll have, very few veterans Vietnam, especially, and that's the era that I can tell you about. Is they don't talk about it. I've talked more today than I've ever talked. About things. I don't talk to my family. I don't talk to my wife. She knows. She'll tell you. You can ask her something. He don't talk about it. And I don't. I keep it right here. But I will say this, in 2004, and that's where I brought up, as I put it behind me, I was in Dallas, Texas on a project working for Kraft Foods, and me and a lady, I was, we had a smoking room up in the engineering offices and all, and she was the head of finance. And I would go in to smoke, and I would stand back in the corner, because you didn't get behind me, and up until then, And a few days, we were chatting, and she says, one day, she come in, she says, "You're a Vietnam veteran, ain't you?" Well, I looked at her. I mean, it just kind of floored me. Well, yeah, why? She says, "I know." She says, "She's standing over there." And so after several times, she conversations, "Come over here, sit down." She said, "I won't ever forget." She says, "I got you back. Just, there won't nobody come through that door." And that, I think, was the start of me trying to open up some. And she taught me to go into the VA. I had a private doctor. Once I got out of the service, they didn't tell us nothing. They don't tell you nothing. The only thing they told me is if you ever want hearing aids, they'll pay for them, and that was it. They never told me that I could go see a VA doctor, so I went to a private doctor. 50 years, but I can't remember the lady's name. She's a real nice lady. She was from Chicago, and they had sent her down to take over the financial dealings at Kraft Foods. But I think that was the start, and I'm getting better. I'm trying to get better. I get wound up every now and then. But other than that, anything else? Or is that about it? I mean,
Yeah, I just want to say, on behalf of the Military Education Preservation Project, first of all, thank you for your service. And thank you for your time and your willingness to share your experiences with us. We really appreciate it.
I just hope I can help somebody. I just hope and pray.
Well, thank you.